Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Thursday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. The search for a coach continues for the Lakers. Has Monty Williams entered the chat? That's next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where you get your podcasts. This one's always free and never behind a paywall. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go to hang out with over 24,000 subscribers, Andy, all of whom are wondering if the writers, in fact, have reached the point of the season where they add those crazy plot twists to the Lakers head coaching search. We'll explain here in a second. Do want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. So Monty Williams, Andy, the former now coach of the Detroit Pistons, was fired was it Wednesday morning?
Wednesday morning.
And so, of course, Monty Williams, he of the largest contract in the NBA for a coach, still owed approximately $742 million by the Detroit Pistons. Fired after 1 year. This, of course, after he was let go by the Suns with a ton of money remaining on his contract. Side note, Monty Williams living the American dream.
I feel like I'm not accusing Monty Williams of tanking jobs in order to just get paid not to go to work, but he's starting to look like, in those heist movies, there's the career criminal who's looking at one last score and then he's going to retire forever. I feel like Monty Williams is now casing teams around the league saying, all right, this is my one last score and then I'm going to disappear to Fiji and nobody's ever going to see me again.
Well, what's funny is
he's like De Niro in Heat.
It's a great game. Like if you can do like tank your coaching job where you're not bad enough to be like where it's obvious you're trying to get fired, which would be a violation of contract.
This year, Monty Williams in Detroit, it looked like he might have been trying to get fired.
Maybe. But you can't screw up this plan. You don't want to be held in like breach of contract or something like that so you can't collect. But what a great scheme that would be to be like, you know what? I don't want to do any of these things. But if I do it poorly for 1 year, I can just, hang out as our friend John Ireland would say on the beach. So kudos to Monty. But anyway, the relevant portion here, Andy, of course, is that Monty Williams was originally a choice of the Lakers before they hired Frank Vogel. That's where they were focusing their attention.
He was the choice behind Ty Lue, but ahead of Frank Vogel.
Yeah. So with Williams available and the Redick things kind of going slowly, it is going to, it's already gotten, Andy, people's attention that maybe the Lakers would put their attention towards Monty Williams.
Earlier on Twitter on Wednesday at Cam Brothers, a man asking questions. Could it be possible that JJ Redick has not yet, at least of this recording, committed to the Lakers because he had been waiting out this Pistons situation, which is the basketball ops are run by fellow Dookie Trajan Langdon, who I believe was part of the Pelicans organization. I don't remember. He certainly must have been somewhere in the front office or whatever when JJ Redick had been in New Orleans, and maybe Redick has been waiting out a situation that could be on paper a better fit for him as a first-time ever coach, rebuilding situation. And maybe the Lakers hadn't fully committed to Redick because they've been waiting out this Pistons situation where a coach, Monty Williams, they once pursued could be available for, very important, dirt cheap, a quality they reportedly always covet in.
They don't even need to pay him.
It's like pay him minimum wage. It doesn't matter.
Monty's going to come coach the Lakers for college credit. That's basically what this is.
He's getting $65 million regardless. Now this could maybe explain a little bit
of what Phoenix still owes him, probably.
I don't know. The money
Oh, that's true. The Detroit contract might have eaten that up.
Right. I think he's no longer getting paid by two teams, but this could even, again, just a man asking questions here. This could possibly even explain why the Lakers put out an offer for Dan Hurley $30 million below what Team Hurley had leaked as their asking price, which seemed bizarre in the moment, like Lakers exceptionalism, arrogance, or cheaping out inexplicably in the moment. Maybe they were just playing four-dimensional chess. Again, I'm just a man asking questions.
Now, I think most of those things are 100% correct. I am excited to yes and my way through that scenario because it's awesome. Just to play devil's advocate, though, what's funny about this is it's not like you are, I think, obviously being jokey, little jokes for the people at a very tense time in Lakers history. But there's enough truth to it that you can say, okay, like, is it reasonable to think that the Lakers would have been, maybe waiting just a second or two, another day or two or three at this point? Why does it matter? Just to see what happens with Monty Williams, if they were still interested in him and had that long running respect for him, and knew that if they were, that if he would to become available, they'd be interested. Would you wait 2 or 3 or 4 more days just to see what happens in Detroit? Certainly the rumors have been percolating. Even if you don't believe that, though, that they wouldn't wait intentionally, the idea that they would now show interest in Williams and maybe slow this down even more, if that's possible, to go kick the tires on Monty it's not unbelievable, is it?
Okay.
Because it's going so slow.
Well, it's not even just that it's going so slow, like to the point where even people seemingly pretty deep into the reporting on all this stuff is like, I have no idea what's going on. Like, that's the general consensus right now is, what the F, man? Like, your guess is as good as mine. I don't think the truth in the narrative that I was spinning comes in the possibility of it being true. The truth comes from the history of the Lakers hiring a coach look really effing hard. They make it look really, really
Herculean,
difficult,
you might say.
Right. And there have been many examples of them outthinking themselves, overthinking it, underthinking it, laying out weird scenarios, whatever. So again, do I think any of the theory that I threw out there is rooted in truth in terms of what's happening in El Segundo? I'm somewhere between no and F if I know. The truth is just they make this look really hard.
And you've seen the reporting out there, and it's early that the Pistons might, like you said, the connection is there, be interested in JJ Redick. And Team Redick, if they were interested in getting this thing finally done with the Lakers, would certainly be very interested in the idea that, putting that out there, that the Pistons and that were interested in him, that he was interested in the Pistons, and like, let's kick this into gear, Lakers, bleep or get off the pot. When we come back, though, I want to talk a little bit about Monty, about what this means for the process. Like, if this slows things down, what if they did decide to meet with Monty Williams or something? Because we're not even totally sure Williams wants to. He had to be coaxed into coaching last year, and it didn't work out. So
dude, if I was Monty Williams, you would never see my ass again for the rest of my life.
God, no. I mean, I would
off the grid.
No, I mean, he has the opportunity to live the American dream.
I would have a bag filled with like $100 million cash, and you would never see me again.
So, but what this and what this ultimately could mean for Redick if the Lakers keep slow playing it. So let's get to all that next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by Game Time and some years ago, friends of mine and I, we went to go see LL Cool J in the now defunct House of Blues off Sunset. And we decided last minute to do this. We didn't really know how to get tickets. Ended up buying them from a scalper, and the scalper took us. These were fake tickets. We managed to get into this concert through totally random, totally unrepeatable luck. But at that moment, I'm like, I'm never doing this again. Like, this was stressful, and that defeats the purpose of going to a concert or any other event to have fun. And that's why I love Game Time. That's the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets to all the sports, music, comedy shows, and theater near you, with killer deals on last-minute tickets and the best price guarantee. You can stop stressing over the tickets, start getting hyped for the fun. They've got flash deals where you can save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. And the Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. And if you find tickets in the same section or row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. It is the fastest growing ticketing app in the country for a reason. So snag the tickets without the stress using Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
So the thing about this is, before we even get into the wisdom of Williams, who has had a tremendous amount of success. He's been a very successful coach in different seasons at the NBA level, but is not, at least in sort of basketball social media, viewed as like a great coach, a great person, good motivator. But just, if you think people were upset about Darvin Ham's rotations and playing time choices, wait till you get a load of the report cards on Monty Williams. But I'm more interested right now, until we hear that Williams is a real candidate, and the impact on the perception of Redick. I really believe that the longer this takes, even if they ultimately land on Redick, unless it becomes very clear that it was Redick's side that was holding this up and not the Lakers, the longer this takes, the worse I think it becomes for Redick in terms of executing the job if he got it.
Well, to begin with, a first-time coach, not even head coach, but coach, you need all of the runway in terms of lead up possible to, picking your staff, to going through the draft, to free agency, to designing the things that you want to do that will dictate decisions in the draft and free agency. And the longer this stretches out without a resolution, the less time Redick has. Like, in terms of potential costs, as an example, Jeff Van Gundy just got hired by the Clippers to be the lead assistant to Ty Lue. And I don't think Jeff Van Gundy was ever mutually in consideration for whoever the Lakers hired as the first lead coach. I mean, he has a relationship with Ty Lue. He had coached Ty Lue, I think, for a year in Houston. Like, this is something very specific to the Clippers, Ty Lue, and Jeff Van Gundy. But the point being, there are options out there that you may lose out on the longer this is unsettled. And I don't think it can be stressed enough how important it is for JJ Redick, if that's who the Lakers ultimately land on, to have the best staff possible. And if, say, Cleveland makes a decision with their coach, if, say, Detroit very quickly decides who they want, like they pull a Phoenix Suns and hire whoever their version of Mike Budenholzer is.
I mean, James Borrego is already thrown out there as, like, which, by the way, could get Cleveland to go faster. Like,
right.
Whether it's every open job that comes up, gets leveraged.
Trajan Langdon has a relationship with James Borrego from, again, New Orleans.
Sure.
So there are potential opportunity costs, and you also you want this to be as smooth as possible. And this is not smooth. It may not ultimately be disastrous big picture, but it's not what you hope to see from an organization that, again, has struggled so much to do this.
And if you leave yourself in a position like if Monty Williams is who they want, and like they really want and they think the timing is right, and they think it's okay that I mean, last year in Detroit was a disaster. Like, to be fired with that contract. I mean, granted, I think Detroit's expectations were a little out of whack with what was likely to be the reality, but they were still a disappointing and underperforming team at the very least that was trying to win. Like, they were not tanking. Detroit was trying to win, and it didn't go well. But if you think that Williams is prepared to step right back in after very reluctantly taking the job in Detroit, and then a really difficult end to things in Phoenix, and go into this job, like, okay, but you gotta, it's not going to be a hire that people look at and say, I'm confident in what's going on here. I'm excited about this. It would point me at the very least to wonder what went wrong with Redick, B, why they would prefer Monty that much over somebody like Borrego. Like, why, if your two choices are former head coach, this guy, Monty Williams, and former head coach James Borrego, I'm more interested in Borrego. And then I would also wonder why they never really seem to get into the other of these high profile assistants. And again, this is all kind of hypothetical because we don't really know anything about Monty Williams. He's sort of an avatar right now for the Lakers coaching search generally. But I mean, that's what would get me thinking.
He's just also right now because of those optics and the things that went on in Detroit. He is I think a tough sell, like in ways that may not be totally about Monty Williams, in the same way that I remember before Phoenix scooped up Mike Budenholzer in like 5 seconds, we had talked about how Mike Budenholzer, the guy who taught Darvin Ham everything that he knows, is a tough sell as the guy you're replacing Darvin Ham with. Is it entirely fair or accurate to Mike Budenholzer? Maybe, maybe not. But in certain ways, that's not the point, because we saw this as an example with Mike D'Antoni, because he ended up getting hired after being pitted against Phil Jackson. D'Antoni was set up to lose. D'Antoni made mistakes of his own independent of that, but he entered the situation with fans pissed off that he was there.
Right, because he didn't, in the minds of fans, Mike D'Antoni didn't replace Mike Brown. He replaced Phil Jackson.
Right. He's not going to win that.
No.
And you want to, especially, remember, that was very early in the process of the Lakers' struggle to land on coaches, as opposed to where we are now. You just don't want to set up whoever this is to get off on a bad foot with the fan base. And I don't know if any of the choices are going to get the fans excited. The general consensus we've seen, other than Dan Hurley, and I think I've seen some actual excitement at the prospect of Sam Cassell. Like
I've seen people who are excited or intrigued or infatuated with Redick. Like, it's not that the idea of Redick is universally unpopular. It's just the longer it goes, the more you start to wonder how confident the Lakers are in the idea of Redick. And it's one thing for you and me and other people to be like, I'm kind of, I don't know, he's never coached before, and I don't know, what about this? And like, it's a tough situation. But like, it's quite another thing for it to look like the Lakers aren't sure, or the Lakers aren't willing to, if it's provide him the right infrastructure. Look, maybe Redick's playing hardball with these negotiations. I don't know. But when you have an unconventional choice like Redick is, he's the sort of, the sexiest name out there, like the name that is going to excite people, or at least draw the most interest of any of the candidates out there. When you have a guy like that, though, with his background, you need to do everything you possibly can to show real enthusiasm from the organization. I mean it. I think there is a material difference between the perception of Redick being hired 2 weeks after the Hurley thing went south versus 2 days. I think it makes a huge difference.
Look, man, we don't know what's going on. Maybe they were about to announce the thing, and then they didn't want to get swallowed up by all the excitement over the Kendrick Lamar concert going on right now. So,
which, maybe according to my social media feed, is like popping.
Maybe Pelinka's there. Maybe Pelinka's there with JJ Redick and Jeannie.
Is he on stage yet? Like, that would be cool if he announced the Redick thing on stage with Kendrick Lamar. Like, you know what? Then I would be like, I'm okay with you waiting a couple days. Like, that's got panache.
I don't think we're going to get Rob Pelinka and Russell Westbrook on the same stage anytime soon.
Not at the same stage at the same time, because Russ was up there too with DeMar DeRozan.
I don't think Russell Westbrook is ever going to leave that stage if it means Rob Pelinka steps on it. He'll stay there when they're cleaning up afterwards if it means Pelinka doesn't go on there.
Some Bron news that is fairly significant, both about the future of Bronny James, if you're concerned about that. And I guess if you're concerned about the Lakers draft, you would be concerned about that. But more importantly, what it might mean for LeBron James, all that next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by Prize Picks, and Prize Picks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with over 3 million members. The easiest, most exciting way to play DFS. It's just you against the numbers. You pick more than or less than on 2 or more player stat projections and watch those winnings roll in. You can win up to 100 times your money right now on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000 with basketball and hockey entries on Prize Picks. Again, America's #1 fantasy sports app. And hoops action has not ended once Boston and Dallas settled their business. Women's basketball is just getting started. Young stars like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, veterans like Asia Wilson and Breanna Stewart. You can win up to 100 times your money, again, as the ladies do their thing. Prize Picks now offers Apple Pay for quick and easy deposits into your account, and you can make your picks, submit your entry in less than 60 seconds. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use the code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
So a little bit of news as Rich Paul continues to make very clear, Andy, what his plans are for Bronny James, how they affect LeBron James and his free agency, continuing to sort of decouple Bronny's future and LeBron's future, which obviously is impactful for the Lakers, whether they decide to draft Bronny or not. You don't have to draft Bronny to keep LeBron, and drafting Bronny doesn't mean you're going to.
It's interesting because on one hand, Rich Paul is going out of his way to, as you said, disentangle father and son in terms of them being a package deal. The flip side, though, is the messaging gets, if nothing else, a little bit unclear when, for the time being, the only 2 teams that Bronny James has worked out for and plans to work out for, unless Rich Paul said something very unexpected changes, are the Lakers and the Suns. Mm-hmm. Meaning that
he did talk about other teams that have interest,
right?
That have shown legitimate interest, but these are so far the only teams he's worked out for,
right? And Rich Paul made it clear that he is in no way outright against Bronny going to a team that didn't work him out. Like he talked about how he's talked about how Bronny has a relationship with Nico Harrison from the Mavericks, and that, Masai Ujiri from the Raptors, like, loves Bronny. Like, Rich Paul has all of these relationships. Like, this is not hard to establish. It's more just the idea that as far as in close personal looks, 50% of the teams that Bronny's worked out for, LeBron is expected to play for. He also, though, you rarely hear an agent say something like this, but in talking about how LeBron and Bronny are not a package deal, and this is messaging that's been going on increasingly throughout the 23-24 season, and just most media has just chosen not to pay attention to it. But he said, quote, LeBron is off this idea of having to play with Bronny. If he does, he does. If he doesn't, he doesn't. There's no deal made that it's guaranteed that if the Lakers draft Bronny at 55, LeBron will re-sign. If that was the case, I would force them to take him at 17. We don't need leverage. The Lakers can draft Bronny and LeBron doesn't re-sign. LeBron is also not going to Phoenix on a minimum deal. We can squash that now. It's rare to hear an agent talk about the rumored scuttlebutt and say on the record, no, my client's not doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people assumed that LeBron was not playing anywhere for the minimum. We certainly have said that the idea that he would do that is completely ludicrous. And before you say, well, what about a biannual exception or like the mid-level? No, LeBron.
Phoenix won't have those. They won't even have those at their disposal.
But like just for other teams, LeBron might play for less than the max, but you better get pretty darn close. I think that's basically why Philadelphia is in the conversation. They can make the space, whatever. But I mean, there's no reason to believe at this point. We were talking for yesterday's show about these like rankings and tiers and this and that and whatever, and some of how that and the best players available in free agency and all that kind of stuff. And this rule that, teams can start negotiating with their own guys right after the finals. And what I think they'll do, we already saw Pascal Siakam, not unexpectedly, agreed to a new deal with Indiana and all of this stuff. You're going to see he was like technically speaking, the third best available free agent. Like, there's no reason to put LeBron in that category until he gives you one. And so, thinking about the free agent class, I don't put LeBron in it. He's going to opt out, and I think he's going to come back. And until something says,
or opt in and extend,
right? Until something says otherwise, that's just how I'm kind of going to ignore all the other stuff. But if you are a team that thinks you might why not make yourself as attractive as possible to James? The only way that's going to happen is if you can you need to be able to contend for a title and get really close to the kind of money that he expects to make.
I feel like it really comes down to, yes, teams can go through machinations to clear cap space. We've seen this before, although I don't think it's as easy as it used to be. But you still can try to do things. It really, to me, feels like stay with the Lakers or go to the Sixers, because the Sixers will have the space to outright do this if they want. Neither one of us knows LeBron particularly well at all. I would be very surprised if he was willing to go that far east, because I would be even more surprised if his family followed him there. I recognize two of his kids will be college age at that point. Maybe you split the difference geographically and Cleveland figures out some machination where they can bring him back for one last hurrah. And, Savannah James has family in Cleveland, I believe, or in Ohio. They've known each other since they were really kids. But that aside, it just feels incredibly unlikely to me. Not even because the Lakers are so incredible that he can't possibly leave them. I think he likes it here. But it's not like it's impossible to walk away from this. I just don't see scenarios that are really that clean as an alternative.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. So this is one of these sort of non-stories until it is. But the Bronny part of it, there's no way the Lakers are going to use a 17th pick on Bronny. That's not going to happen. People are going to riot. It'd be bad for Bronny if they did.
Be bad for Bronny. I don't think LeBron would be wild about it, in all honesty.
But it's bad. It's so incredibly wildly over where he ought to be drafted that it's just. But the idea they could take him at 55, okay, that's reasonable. The other and other teams, but it is smart for Rich Paul, I think, to just put that out there, because with a guy like that, the idea with second round picks or even undrafted players is you want to try to. When you're not going to be a first round pick, you're not going to get that guaranteed contract or whatever it is, you really do want to try to position your player in the best way possible and guide the process as much. You can't prevent people from drafting someone, but you can discourage it and encourage it in other places. And so I think that's what this is. If a team drafts him at 42, he's not going to not show up. But they're doing what smart agents do, which is trying to maximize the process for a client that I think, if I'm reading and aggregating the scouting reports correctly, is so many people think he's got some potential, but he's not ready to help out right away.
I also just think Rich Paul is a powerful enough agent that you don't want to outwardly draft his client when he's made it very clear we really don't want to be here. It's just bad business.
And not for Bronny.
Right, exactly.
For a more sure thing, a guy that can be a franchise changer or something like that, but not for Bronny. I just don't, unless he just really exceeds expectations. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out with over 24,000 subscribers, all of whom are keeping an eye on this whole coaching thing, Andy. We will be as well. Got one more show this week. News breaks. We will be right there to help you deliver it and figure out what it all means. And otherwise, we will see you tomorrow.